Okay, so I've got my basic scene set up. And once again, I'm not going to walk you through how to set it up. You should be able to do that on your own at this point. So I'm going to animate the box for this demonstration, and we'll put anticipation on him, and then it will be up to you to do the other two. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to Shift W to set a translation keyframe. I'm going to drag it out to, we'll say 132. So here, and Shift W, do another keyframe, and just hit play, and the box moves. It comes to a gradual stop. Not gradual enough, so I will, pressing F when I did that. So to change the proportion of the curve, I select the keyframe and I press F, and it will frame around that selection and stretch it out so that it's a little bit easier to see than how it was before. So once again, it's like F works in your viewport to zoom in and select the object you want to look at, and it works the same in the graph. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to break these tangents and weight this tangent and drag it out like that so we get more of an ease to the stop. All right, so to add anticipation to that, I need the cube to go back before it goes forward. So what anticipation does is it sets up the main action, and moving the cube back before we go forward, it anticipates. It sets up the main action by moving in the opposite direction and then moving in. We are giving the viewer an expectation and then rewarding that expectation. So I don't have any room to actually add anything because I set my keyframe to start the motion on 1. So I'm going to go ahead and move these keyframes out. And there's a couple of ways to do this. So the first way is I've got the move tool selected. I'm going to select all the keyframes that I want to move, and I want to move the entire motion. I'm going to press Shift and hold that down, and then middle mouse click, and then drag to the left. And that's going to move all the keyframes that I have selected. So now he's starting at frame 15, not frame 1. And I'm going to go ahead and delete these keyframes on Translate X and Translate Y, which is just draw a marquee around them, a box. Press Delete to select. Since he's not moving on X or Z, those are just kind of in the way. So now I've got some room to work with at the beginning. I'm going to go ahead and right-click Key Selected at 1. So I've got that keyframe at 1. And I'm going to use the tangents right here. Break tangent to create some anticipation. So if I move it up, it goes back and forward. All right, so you don't want to do too much. The amount of anticipation you do kind of sets up for the expectation of how fast this cube is going to move, or how fast the object is going to move. So for my ball in the expectation video, it has a very small amount. The primitive has a ton because the primitive just gets going. So this one, I'm going to give it a small amount. I'm going to go ahead and play blast that, see how it looks. Oops, it's not a very good camera angle. Let that play through one more time to cache that in memory, get better performance. So a good idea to play your play blast a couple of times so that in case it's large. Like I'm play blasting at 4K for clarity, so these are actually quite sizable little files. Okay, so the problem I'm having with this as I look at it is the anticipation is at a different, like the rate of speed at which the anticipation occurs is different than the main action. And we can see that in this little break in the line here. So he pulls back as the slope increases of the line, the speed of the action increases. It evens up as it comes to the extent of the distance it's going to move back. Let's go ahead and frame that up better, sorry. And then as he gets going, he doesn't really, see how flat this part is right here? That doesn't support this level of anticipation, so I need to edit this side of the tangent to bring it in line with this side of the curve. And I'm just going to anchor it down like that. So now it's not as jarring as he ends his anticipation. Now his anticipation peaks, and then it's like, boom, I'm going. He builds some speed. All right, gonna play blast that. Let it run. All right. That's not looking too bad. So, whoops. There's my Okay, I'm thinking I could actually add a little bit more anticipation. So, oops, that was the wrong view. Zoom that back out. You can use the bracket keys on your keyboard to go back to views that you had, and that's just the it's the button right by there's two bracket buttons right by the letter P on your keyboard, and that will the left one will take you backwards. The right one will take you forwards. That's a handy set of keys to know. Alright, so make sure I'm in my animation viewport. I'm going to press F to focus in on this keyframe here. Alright, so I think I want to just pull this up a little bit more. And when I did that, there's this, you can see that there's this ever slight divot here. Sometimes you can actually see that in the motion. It's not very visible right now, so I'm going to leave that. I'm going to pull this, I'm just going to undo that. I'm going to press Shift and then middle mouse drag to keep that flat. There we go. That's looking better. That's just playing back in the viewport. Go back and play blast. I want you to be in the habit of not relying on the viewport. The viewport is actually pretty good in Maya, but the play blast is a better truth, I'll say. It's more likely to match what you're actually getting because it's not an actual movie. It's not being limited by the capabilities of your computer. Okay. Just looking at it a few times. All right. I like that. All right, so the other way, I want to just show you guys another way of moving keyframes. So we did it here in the graph editor. I'm going to move this last keyframe, and I'm going to make the box stop sooner. So I'm going to move it to the left. I'm going to use the timeline for doing it. So I'm going to move my mouse cursor down here to the timeline. I'm going to press and hold Shift, and then left click drag, and I get this red bar. and there's two sets of arrows. The outer arrows, when I'm holding shift, increase the range of the selected keyframes that I'm working with, and the inner arrows actually allow me to move them. So I can actually select a whole range of keyframes. So I can select from here to here and then move those keyframes, and you see what's happening in the graph there. Oh, and I am in the animation workspace, by the way. I forgot to mention that, but that's where this is all happening. Press undo there. I can also scale keyframes. So I'm going to press R to get the scale tool. And this tool won't let me scale them. I can scale them in this graph view here though. So I went ahead and I selected this keyframe and this keyframe, hold shift, and wherever I click, that's going to be the pivot. So I can move this in by scaling it, but if I go over here and do it, it's going to scale this keyframe as well. So where you choose to place the pivot is going to matter. All right, so go ahead and do that for the other two objects and then move on to the squash and stretch assignment.